Hey, gorgeous souls, I'm Monica, and I'm about to tell you the most epic restaurant confrontation story that turned my cheating husband's romantic dinner into the most humiliating public exposure of his life. When I discovered my husband David was taking his mistress Stephanie to our favorite anniversary restaurant for a special celebration, I didn't just confront him privately. I made a reservation for the table right next to theirs and brought along some very special guests who were about to ruin his perfect evening. But here's where this restaurant revenge gets absolutely insane. I didn't just expose David's affair to his mistress. I invited his boss, his parents, and Stephanie's husband to join me for dinner at the neighboring table. By the time their romantic evening was over, David had lost his job, his family's respect, his marriage, and his mistress, while I got the most satisfying dinner show of my life and a divorce settlement that left him broke. This story has everything: restaurant espionage, public humiliation, family confrontations, and the kind of revenge that destroyed two cheaters in front of a room full of witnesses. Y'all ready for this dining disaster? Because this is how one dinner reservation became the most expensive meal my cheating husband ever had. Beautiful souls, let me take you back to 6 months ago when I thought David and I had the perfect 12-year marriage, completely unaware that he'd been living a double life with his coworker for over 2 years. I'm Monica, 35 years old, and I work as a nurse practitioner at a family clinic in Nashville, Tennessee. My husband David is 37 and works as a regional sales director for a pharmaceutical company, a job that requires frequent client dinners and networking events. David and I met in college and had what everyone considered a solid, loving marriage. We own a beautiful house in the suburbs, take annual vacations together, and have always been each other's best friends and biggest supporters. La Bella Vita, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, has been our special place since our first anniversary. We've celebrated every major milestone there: promotions, anniversaries, birthdays, and important achievements. This place will always be ours, David would tell me every time we dined there. No matter what happens in life, La Bella Vita will remind us of how much we love each other. David's work required regular entertaining of clients and colleagues, which meant frequent dinners at nice restaurants throughout Nashville. Building relationships in pharmaceutical sales is all about face-to-face interaction, David would explain. These doctors and hospital administrators need to trust me personally before they'll trust our products. About 3 years ago, David's company hired Stephanie Walsh as a marketing coordinator to support the sales team. Stephanie was 28, recently divorced, and according to David, incredibly talented at developing client relationships and marketing strategies. David began mentioning Stephanie frequently in his work stories, always in professional contexts that seemed completely appropriate. Stephanie has such great ideas for presenting our products to medical practices, David would tell me. She's really helping our team close more deals and build stronger client relationships. David and Stephanie began working closely together on client presentations, marketing campaigns, and industry conferences. Stephanie and I make a great professional team, David would say. She understands the marketing side while I handle the sales relationships. We're increasing our territory revenue significantly. David's mentions of Stephanie were always professional and seemingly innocent, so I never questioned their working relationship. About 2 years ago, David's work schedule and behavior began changing in ways that I initially attributed to increased job responsibilities. David started working later hours and attending more client dinners, often not coming home until 9 or 10 p.m. The competition in pharmaceutical sales is getting intense, David would explain. I need to spend more time building relationships if I want to maintain our sales numbers and keep my position. David also began paying more attention to his appearance, buying new clothes, joining a gym, and spending more time grooming before work events. I want to look professional and successful when I'm representing the company, David told me when I commented on his increased focus on appearance. David's phone habits also changed. He became more protective of his device and would often step outside to take work calls. Some of these client conversations involve confidential medical practice information, David explained. I can't risk having sensitive discussions overheard. La Bella Vita remained special to David and me throughout these changes, and we continued celebrating our anniversaries and special occasions there. Just 4 months ago, we had celebrated our 12th wedding anniversary at La Bella Vita with a beautiful dinner where David had given a touching speech about our enduring love. Monica, 12 years ago we started our journey together, and La Bella Vita has been witness to every important moment since, David had said. This restaurant represents our commitment, our love, and our future together. David had seemed genuinely emotional and committed during the anniversary celebration, which made his later betrayal even more devastating. I can't imagine my life without you, David had told me that night. You're my best friend, my partner, and the love of my life. Gorgeous souls, the truth about David's affair came to light in the most mundane way possible, through a misdelivered piece of mail. That revealed he'd been planning a romantic evening at our special restaurant with another woman. The discovery happened when I received David's credit card statement in the mail, thinking it was mine since we have similar names and sometimes mail gets mixed up. I opened the statement casually while sorting through bills and immediately noticed several charges that seemed unusual for David's typical spending patterns. There were multiple charges at jewelry stores, expensive lingerie boutiques, florists, and high-end restaurants that David had never mentioned to me. Most shocking was a recurring charge for a La Bella Vita restaurant that appeared monthly for the past 6 months, charges that coincided with evenings when David claimed to be at client dinners. I knew David hadn't been taking me to La Bella Vita monthly, so he was clearly taking someone else to our special restaurant. The amounts charged were significant, $200 to $300 per dinner, indicating intimate meals for two rather than business entertaining. I decided to investigate further by checking David's email, using his laptop when he was in the shower. I found email confirmations from La Bella Vita for a reservation under David's name for this Friday evening at 8 p.m. for a party of 2. The reservation was for the same romantic corner table where David and I had celebrated our anniversary just 4 months earlier. The email also included a note that David had requested the special anniversary wine selection and dessert service, the same romantic touches he'd arranged for our celebrations. I realized that David was not only cheating on me but was recreating our special anniversary experiences with another woman at our sacred restaurant. I checked David's phone while he was sleeping and found text message conversations with Tess Walsh that confirmed my worst fears. The messages showed that David and Stephanie had been having an affair for over 2 years and were planning to celebrate her recent divorce finalization with a romantic dinner. Can't wait for Friday night at La Bella Vita, Stephanie had texted. Finally celebrating our freedom to be together openly. I've been waiting 2 years to take you to my favorite restaurant, David had replied. This is going to be the perfect night to start our real relationship. The text messages also revealed that David had been telling Stephanie that he was planning to leave Monica soon, and that Friday's dinner was their pre-engagement celebration. David had apparently bought Stephanie a promise ring that he was planning to give her at La Bella Vita during their romantic dinner. As I read through months of text messages, I realized that David's affair with Stephanie had been going on during some of our most important celebrations. David had been texting Stephanie during our anniversary dinner 4 months ago, telling her how much he wished he was with her instead. David had also been using our joint credit card to pay for his romantic dinners with Stephanie, essentially making me pay for his affair. Most devastatingly, David and Stephanie had been planning their future together while David continued to lie to me about working late and attending client dinners. Their text messages showed that they'd been using La Bella Vita as their special place for over 6 months, with David telling Stephanie about the restaurant's significance in his marriage while simultaneously making it the foundation of their affair. Instead of confronting David immediately, I decided to plan the most public and devastating exposure possible. I called La Bella Vita and made a reservation for Friday night at 8 p.m. for a party of 6 at the table directly adjacent to David's reserved corner table. "I'd like to surprise my husband who's dining at table 12, I told the hostess. "Could you seat my party at table 11 so we can see him when he arrives?" The restaurant staff, who recognized me as a regular customer, were happy to accommodate what they thought was a sweet surprise for David. I then began planning the guest list for David's surprise dinner party, a carefully selected group of people whose presence would maximize his humiliation and consequences. Beautiful souls, David thought he was planning the perfect romantic evening to start his new life with Stephanie. Instead, I was planning the perfect audience for the most humiliating public exposure of a cheating husband in restaurant history. I carefully selected 5 guests whose presence would ensure maximum damage to both David's personal and professional life. First, I invited David's boss, Mr. Richard Chin, who had always appreciated David's integrity and family values, and frequently mentioned how much he admired our marriage. "Richard, I'd love to treat you to dinner Friday night at La Bella Vita," I told him. "David's been working so hard lately, and I want to show appreciation for his wonderful boss." Second, I invited David's parents, Robert and Linda Morrison, who adored me and constantly praised David for being such a devoted husband. "I want to surprise David with a special dinner with his favorite people," I told them. "He's been under so much work stress, and I think seeing his family would make him happy." Third, I invited my sister Emily, who worked as a private investigator and could document everything for potential legal proceedings. Finally, I invited James Walsh, Stephanie's ex-husband, whose divorce had just been finalized and who had no idea that his ex-wife was immediately moving on with a married man. Finding James required some investigation, but I discovered through social media that Stephanie's divorce had been finalized just 2 weeks earlier. James was a local contractor who had been married to Stephanie for 5 years before their divorce due to what he thought were irreconcilable differences. I contacted James and explained that I had information about why his marriage had really ended. "James, I think you deserve to know that your ex-wife Stephanie has been having an affair with my husband David for the past 2 years, I told him. "Your divorce wasn't due to incompatibility, it was because Stephanie was cheating on you with a married man and wanted to be free to pursue that relationship." James was shocked and angry to learn that his marriage had been destroyed by Stephanie's affair. I suspected something was wrong, but Stephanie convinced me that we'd just grown apart, James told me. "I can't believe she was lying to me for 2 years while planning her future with your husband." James eagerly agreed to join our dinner party to confront Stephanie about her deception and the damage she'd caused to his life. I spent the week before Friday's dinner gathering comprehensive evidence of David's affair to present during the confrontation. I printed copies of David's credit card statements showing the La Bella Vita charges and other romantic expenses. I also compiled screenshots of text messages between David and Stephanie discussing their relationship and future plans. My sister Emily helped me organize a folder of evidence that would be impossible for David to deny or explain away. "Monica, this evidence is overwhelming," Emily told me. "David won't be able to lie his way out of this confrontation." I also prepared a list of specific questions to ask David and Stephanie about their relationship timeline and the lies they'd told to their respective spouses. I coordinated with La Bella Vita's management to ensure our surprise dinner would have maximum impact. I explained to the manager that I was planning to confront my cheating husband and asked for their discretion and support. "We've seen you and David here for years," the manager told me. "We had no idea he was bringing another woman here. We'll make sure your table has a clear view of his party." The restaurant staff agreed to help by ensuring our food service was coordinated so we'd be at our table when David and Stephanie arrived. I also asked them to turn up the lighting in that section of the restaurant so everyone could clearly see the confrontation. Friday afternoon, I confirmed with all my guests that our dinner was still on schedule. David spent extra time getting ready that evening, clearly excited about his romantic dinner with Stephanie. "I have another client dinner tonight," David told me casually. "Probably won't be home until late. Don't wait up for me." "Have a wonderful evening, darling," I replied sweetly. "I hope it's a night you'll never forget." David left the house at 7:30 p.m., completely unaware that his wife, his boss, his parents, his sister-in-law, and his mistress's ex-husband would be waiting for him at La Bella Vita. Gorgeous souls, what David and Stephanie thought would be their romantic celebration of freedom became the most public relationship destruction in La Bella Vita's history, witnessed by a dining room full of shocked patrons and devastating family members. My party arrived at La Bella Vita at 7:45 p.m. and was seated at table 11 with a perfect view of David's reserved corner table. David's boss Richard was confused about why we were there, but I explained that I wanted to surprise David with his favorite people during what I knew would be a difficult evening. David's parents were excited about the surprise, and James Walsh was nervous but determined to confront Stephanie about her affair. At exactly 8 p.m., David and Stephanie arrived at the restaurant, both dressed elegantly for their romantic celebration. David was carrying a small gift box that I knew contained the promise ring he planned to give Stephanie. Stephanie looked radiant and happy, clearly believing she was about to start her new life with David as her committed partner. They were seated at their corner table with their backs to us, completely unaware that their entire support systems were watching from 10 feet away. For the first 15 minutes, we watched David and Stephanie's romantic dinner unfold exactly as they'd planned. David ordered the same special wine that he always ordered for our anniversary celebrations. Stephanie was clearly emotional and happy, reaching across the table to hold David's hand and laughing at his conversation. David pulled out the gift box and presented it to Stephanie, who gasped with excitement and put on what appeared to be a beautiful promise ring. "This is perfect," we could hear Stephanie say. "I've been waiting so long for us to be able to celebrate our relationship openly." David's parents were confused about what we were watching, but his boss Richard was beginning to understand that David wasn't at a client dinner. "Monica, who is that woman with David?" Richard asked quietly. "That doesn't look like a business meeting." After watching their romantic celebration for 20 minutes, I decided it was time to end their fantasy. I stood up from our table and walked over to David and Stephanie's corner table with my 5 guests following behind me. "David, what a wonderful surprise to see you here," I said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "I thought you were at a client dinner tonight." David's face went completely white when he saw me, followed by horror when he realized his boss and parents were standing behind me. "Monica, what are you doing here?" David stammered, clearly panicking about how to explain the situation. "I'm here to have dinner with your boss, your parents, and Stephanie's ex-husband James," I announced clearly. "We thought it would be nice to meet the woman you've been having an affair with for 2 years. Stephanie looked confused and terrified as she realized that her romantic evening had become a public confrontation with multiple witnesses. I pulled out the folder of evidence and began reading David's text messages to Stephanie in front of the assembled group. Here's a message from last Tuesday where David tells Stephanie, "I can't wait to start our real life together after I leave Monica," I announced. And here's one where Stephanie tells David, "Friday will be perfect for celebrating our freedom to be together openly." David's parents were horrified to learn about their son's affair and deception. "David, how could you do this to Monica?" his mother Linda demanded through tears. "We raised you to be honest and faithful." David's boss Richard was equally appalled by David's behavior and lies. "David, you've been lying to me about client dinners while using company resources for personal affairs," Richard said angrily. "This is a violation of company policy and professional ethics." James Walsh stepped forward to confront Stephanie about her role in destroying his marriage. "Stephanie, now I understand why you wanted a divorce," James said. "You weren't growing. Apart from me, you were cheating on me with David for 2 years. You lied to me about why our marriage was failing while you were planning your future with another man," James continued. "You destroyed our 5-year marriage for an affair with someone who was also married." Stephanie broke down crying as she realized that her affair had been exposed to everyone who mattered to both her and David. "James, I never meant for you to get hurt," Stephanie sobbed. "David and I just fell in love, and we couldn't help our feelings." "You could have helped your choices," James replied angrily. "You chose to lie and cheat instead of being honest about what you wanted." The confrontation attracted the attention of other diners, who watched in fascination as David and Stephanie's affair was exposed in real time. The restaurant manager approached our table and offered to move the conversation to a private area. But I declined. "This conversation needs to happen publicly," I told the manager. "David chose to bring his affair to a public restaurant, so he can face the consequences publicly." David tried desperately to explain his behavior, but his explanations only made things worse. "I never meant for anyone to get hurt," David said weakly. "Stephanie and I just connected, and our relationship developed naturally." "Naturally?" I asked incredulously. "You've been lying to me for 2 years and using our joint credit card to pay for your romantic dinners. Nothing about this affair was natural." David's boss Richard announced that David's employment would be terminated immediately for violating company policies and misrepresenting his activities. David's parents expressed their shame and disappointment in their son's behavior and their support for me during the divorce proceedings. Stephanie's relationship with David ended that evening when she realized that he'd been lying to her about the timeline of leaving me and that their affair had cost both of them everything. David left La Bella Vita alone, having lost his wife, his job, his parents' respect, and his mistress in one devastating dinner. The divorce proceedings were swift and favorable to me, with David's affair providing grounds for a settlement that left him financially responsible for his deception. Stephanie and James both testified about David's lies and manipulation during the divorce, ensuring that I received compensation for his betrayal. La Bella Vita offered me a lifetime discount and a standing reservation at my favorite table, acknowledging my loyalty as a customer and my dignity during the confrontation. Today, I'm happily single and building a new life that's based on honesty and self-respect rather than lies and deception. David lost his career, his family relationships, and his financial security because he thought he could maintain an affair without facing consequences. That's how you handle a cheating husband who thinks he can use your special places for his affair, y'all. You turn his romantic dinner into his public destruction and make sure he pays for every lie he told. Sometimes the best revenge comes from simply exposing the truth in front of everyone who needs to see it. And gorgeous souls, if this story resonated with you, if you've been betrayed by someone who used your special places for their affairs, I want you to know that you have the power to reclaim what's yours and expose their lies. If you want to hear more stories like this, more tales of restaurant revenge, public affair exposure, and cheating consequences, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. Your support means everything to me. Beautiful souls. Every like, every comment, every share helps me reach more people who need to hear these stories. So smash that subscribe button, leave me a comment about your own experiences with cheating partners, and let's build a community of people who refuse to let cheaters destroy what's sacred to us. I'll see you gorgeous souls in the next story. And remember, never let anyone steal your special places, and always make cheaters face the truth publicly.